It's summer finally, and it's time to bring out the big guns. Not those guns, man. These guns. Fury Warrior is slapping right now in 10.1 and 10.1.5, and it's a blast to play. But how are you going to play Fury Warrior? Well, don't worry, because we at Marcelian&Online have you covered with all the talents, rotation, gear, stats, consumables, and everything that you need to quickly log into your warrior, pick a second weapon, and then just go blast some dungeons and raids right off the bat. Let's kick it. But before we kick it, keep in mind that these guides would not be possible without the support of our Patreons. If you want to see more of these classes and hopefully maybe a spec that you're interested in, consider checking our Patreon page down below. It definitely supports our content and everything that we do and makes these possible. And we have been listening to you guys, hence why guides are back. Thank you, and let's get into the talents. We're gonna start off with the raid talents, going into the first aspect of the end game. Of course, raiding is gonna be where you're gonna get your tier set and all of the good weapons and trinkets and things. So ideally, you would probably want to know how to do raids. It's not necessarily required, but we're gonna go firstly into the general talent tree, which is something like this. There are a couple of things that you're probably only going to use in raids, stuff like bitter immunity, which is a really good defensive, has a little bit of self-sustain, and if needed, you can dispel a bunch of stuff on you. But you'll also have stuff like intervene, which is really good for mobility and moving around from place to place, specifically if you aim it on a party member, raid member rather. Just don't put it on the tank, okay? Just don't put it on the tank. Just do yourself a favor and never intervene the tank, okay? Okay. Now, you'll also see Spear of Bastion, which is a really good capstone for single target, and pretty much everything else remains fairly standard in the general talent tree. As far as the spec talents go, this is pretty much the build that you will want, especially after you've received your tier set. We can go into the build prior to the tier set, but it will be a little bit too much, and since we're in the second week of the catalyst, it's likely that you're going to get your tier set really quick, so might as well just go into the talents that you see here. Obviously, you're going to play two of the main culprits, which are Cold Steel, Hot Blood, and Vicious Contempt. Only 1 point in Vicious Contempt, though, so that you can get those fat Bloodthirst synergies. Specifically, since we're talking about single target, you will notice stuff like Ashen Juggernaut and Massacre. Specifically, Massacre is what you're going to always have in single target for those big execute phases. Now, when we're talking about adds in raid, you can make a couple of changes. First of all, in the general talent tree, you will swap from bitter immunity to barbaric training, making your slam and whirlwind deal 20% increased damage and 10% increased critical strike damage. This is obviously a nice AoE increase in damage, and you'll likely not need bitter immunity that much, so might as well just get some more damage. In terms of the spec talent, you'll swap a couple of things around. First of all, you'll take a point from Vicious Contempt and put it into improved whirlwind, and you'll take another point from Massacre and put it into Meat Cleaver. This will give you a lot more AoE damage for those assault fights and things like that to just clear those adds really quick. But again, all of this is very flexible, and you can choose and min-max around. You can still play single target and AoE fights if you just want that boss damage. It's all up to you. Moving into Mythic Plus, because that's also a part of the content that you do in World of Warcraft, you'll change a couple of things in the general talent tree. First of all, you will take Stormbolt because this is just good. It's good, okay? You want Stormbolt for the CC, obviously Barbaric Training, and you will go down to Endurance Training and Shockwave. Shockwave is a really good crowd control ability. It does mediocre, very mediocre damage, but it does stun, and it's on a 40-second cooldown, giving you a lot of stops for a lot of casts that keep on going in dungeons, making you a very, very useful addition to your party in terms of utility and crowd control. There are a couple of things that you will swap as well. You'll move away from Cruel Strikes in the Spear of Bastion talents, and you'll of course not have Intervene anymore, and instead go into Thunderous Roar and Thunderous Words. Thunderous Roar is an amazing AoE ability, and it does a lot of damage, and it's not AoE capped, so it's really good with Thunderous Words, increasing the duration of Thunderous Roar bleed by 2 seconds, and increases the damage of your bleed effect by 15 seconds at all times, which is really good because you do have a couple of bleeds, specifically since you're going to be playing Cold Steel Hot Blood. Speaking of, in the spec talent tree, you will have Cold Steel Hot Blood, and you'll also notice that you will take Bloodborne. Once again, goes well with all the bleed effects, and of course, you probably won't go into Ashen Juggernaut and Massacre, but you'll get all of the Whirlwind talents, which are really good. For a little bit more focus on burst and pure AoE, and let's say less focus on survivability, there are a couple of things that you can change, and this is usually the build that's ran in the highest and highest of keys, and we would recommend you take this once you get comfortable with Fury. In terms of the general talent tree, you will get Intimidating Shout for an AoE stop, because we're not going to go all the way down to Shockwave, you still want to have that value. And you, surprisingly enough, will not get Barbaric Training, but you will put a point into Cruel Strikes for a little bit more crit and a little bit more Execute for those tyrannical bosses. And you'll also take Uproar, reducing your Thunderous Roar cooldown by 30 seconds, which is giga big. This will give your Thunderous Roar a 1-minute cooldown and will be available for almost every pack, specifically going into very high keys, by the way, when your tank pulls 2-3 packs, and by the time the packs are done, your Thunderous Roar will be available for the next pack. The spec talents will remain exactly the same, they will not change, but only in the general talent tree you'll make these adjustments. Moving into the stats, as always, by the way, the best way to figure out exactly what the best stats are for you is to sim. We have started a couple of simming videos on our channel that you can check after watching this one, of course, that will guide you through how to sim actually on raidboss.com. But I understand not everybody is up to, using third-party programs to kind of understand the game and what they need to do. So for those of you who are not necessarily interested in doing all of that stuff, there's still a stat priority that you can follow that will make it very competitive and will give you the most amount of damage that you can take from your gear without actually min-maxing every little percentage. Obviously, strength is your best stat, meaning that you will take gear of the highest eye level possible, specifically the ones that do have strength, because some pieces don't have main stat, by the way, and you'll prioritize that over everything else. Following strength, you will want haste. Haste and mastery, to be precise, are usually the combo of secondary stats that you will be looking to get in pretty much all situations, with crit and versatility being a little bit lower on the priority list, but not, essentially useless. In terms of enchants, your weapons will have Sophic Devotion. Your chest will have Waking stats. For the legs, get Frosted Armor Kit. Put a Graceful Avoidance on your cloak and a Devotion Avoidance on your braces for that AoE damage reduction that you will take pretty much all the time, specifically in raids. Get a Shadow Belt Clasp for your belt for some extra stamina. And speaking of stamina, Watcher's Loam on your boots for even more stamina. And Devotion of Mastery on your ring for the mastery. And let's not forget, you will want gems eventually, and you will start with Skillful Limited Diamond and a Keen Emerald. As for your consumables, the one that you consume, because you consume stuff, the feast is obviously the best food, but obviously this comes with a caveat that, it's probably only going to be available in your raids, but you can instead take a Fated Fortune cookie, which is pretty much the same thing. Feisty Fish Sticks is a secondary choice if none of these above are available. Take a Phial of Tepid Versatility as your best phial, because versatility is good, and an Elemental Potion of Ultimate Power for your DPS windows. And let's not forget a Hissing Rune for your weapons. Moving into gear, we won't spend too much time here, but there are a couple of things that you can aim to get to make your journey a little bit more interesting. First of all, in terms of crafted gear, specifically embellishments, the best embellishments you can have in single target are 2 Shadow Flame Tempered patches into your crafted gear. Ideally, craft these into non-tier slots so that you cannot interfere with your actual acquisition of your tier set unless you already have it and you just want to put it on your shoulder or headpiece or whatever. Though we recommend not doing on those. Or for multi-target, you can get Allied Wrist Guard of Companionship, and a Lariat necklace will always be good, especially later down the patch when you have all of your sockets. The best weapons that you can get, starting with the best of the best, the creme de la creme, the bee's knees, the Ashkander, baby, Fall of the Brotherhood. Obviously, this is the best weapon that you can have on one of your hands, because, you will use 2. But of course, this is a little bit later into the raid. It drops from Echo of Neltharion. Likely, you'll get the heroic one way before the mythic one. But hey, it's still a really good weapon. Alternatively, you can get the Infernal Shadelands from Kazara, specifically if you are raiding. It is the first boss of the raid. You will get it at a decent eye level. Or you can craft your Obsidian Seared Claymore at the highest level possible, probably way before you're able to even get one from your vault. Or, If you do get a plus 20 vault and gives you a very high item level weapon, higher than anything that you have, obviously that will be better. Going into the trinkets, obviously if you're raiding, and coincidentally the best trinkets for the raid are Ominous Chromatic Essence and Screaming Black Dragon Scale, while for dungeons you will want Mark of Dargrul and the Phial of Animated Blood. All of these four are essentially the best trinkets your Fury Warrior can have. You don't really necessarily have to have them in these pairs, you can just mix and match. You can sim, of course, even better, but these are probably the ones that you want to be looking out for. And last but not least, obviously your cloak. The best cloak that you can get is Voice of the Silent Star, dropping from Sarkreth. This is essentially a very, 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 very rare cloak, by the way, so chances to loot it are very, very little, but if you do get it, then keep it. As far as the rotation is concerned, Fury Warrior has one of the most consistent rotations across the board, no matter what content you do, with 1 or 2 changes depending on, the number of targets and maybe 1 or 2 talent swaps. In single target, assuming you're playing the builds that we are recommending in raids, of course, you want to make sure that you charge and have your enrage enabled as soon as possible. There's a couple of ways of doing this depending on what you want. You can either just charge and then Bloodthirst with Fresh Meat to instantly activate Enrage, or Onslaught with Tenderize to instantly activate Enrage, or you can pre-cast, and this is probably more consistent, Avatar into Recklessness and then into Charge and then into Ravager, Rampage, Bloodthirst, Spear of Bastion, Rampage again, and then you continue with your single target rotation priority. Moving into the single target priority rotation, which is going to be consistent across the board no matter what content you do, the most important thing you want to keep in mind is that you want to use Avatar immediately before Recklessness with Berserker's Torment Talented, since, they go hand in hand, and you want to extend these buffs as much as possible. Recklessness is second on the list, and third, you want to make sure that you are enraged. You can do this with a bunch of stuff. The most important, obviously, is Rampage. You can also do it through Onslaught, because we are taking the Tenderize talent, or lastly, Bloodthirst, but only press Bloodthirst if the buff, the Enrage buff, is not currently active on your target. After this, you want to use Ravager on cooldown, ideally aligned with Recklessness. You'll use Spear of Bastion only while you're in rage for the most amount of damage, Rampage to spend the rage and maintain the Enrage buff and not cap your resource, and Bloodthirst with your 4-set crit stack all the way to 95% crit to apply Cold Steel Hot Blood 100% of the time. You will use Execute next whenever it is available, Onslaught to trigger Enrage with the Tenderize talent, Raging Blow as the main ability that you'll be using, main filler. You're going to cast this a lot, and if you really don't have anything else to do, Bloodthirst and Whirlwind as the last fillers, finishing up your priority list. In AoE, the opener is pretty much the same thing. You charge, and you want to make sure that the Whirlwind buff is up before you hit any damaging ability, and it just pretty much follows the single target opener rotation. We're not going to go into the details again. As for the AoE priority, it's also the same as the single target rotation. You're just weaving in Whirlwinds in between every 2 or 4 attacks, probably 4 if you're using our builds, so that you can cleave all of your abilities. Everything else stays the same. There's one combo that you can use in Mythic Plus AoE to maximize your burst on a pack, and you want to always start it with Whirlwind. You want to press Bloodthirst first, because Fresh Meat will give you Enrage, or Onslaught, or if you have Rage from your previous pack, Rampage, to enable your Enrage window. Start by pressing Avatar first, Recklessness, Ravager, Thunderous Roar. By this point, you'll probably be full on Rage, so Rampage, and then Onslaught, and then you continue your rotation with weaving in Whirlwinds in between your attacks. The only additional thing that I would like you to know once you have your 4 sets is that to kind of really optimize your rotation, specifically with the 4-set crit stack on your Bloodthirst, you want to kind of delay Bloodthirst a little bit until you can guarantee the crit to trigger Cold Steel Hot Blood. Obviously, this factors in your current crit chance and the current number of stacks. You're probably not going to reach max stacks, but the best way to do this is to use a weak aura that will essentially let you know when the best time to use Bloodthirst is. You don't have to, you can just play normally if you just want to have some fun and blast, but if you really want to optimize, check the description down below and get the weak card that we recommend you get, and you'll be able to use your Bloodthirst efficiently with your 4 set and always crit and keep that Cool Seal Hot Blood up really nicely. This is pretty much everything that you need to know for Fury going into 10.1 and 10.1.5. Granted, nothing major changes, but nothing for you that you need to worry about. We'll post the updates if that's necessary. And a shout out to the Skyhold Discord community, specifically Archimitros. Dude, I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce your name, but the man is the guide writer for Wowhead, one of the leaders, if not the big dog on the Skyhold Discord community for Fury. A plethora of Fury information has been posted in the Skyhold Discord community. If you want to dive deeper into the spec, optimize your builds, find out some different talent optimization that you can do, check the Skyhold community and talk with the big boys Fury for even more advanced tips that we usually don't put in our video. Thank you guys for doing amazing work and keeping us Fury Warrior educated. Fury Warrior educated. That sounds like an oxymoron, man. And thank you for watching the video. Don't forget, our Patreon platform is directly supporting our videos, so if you want to see more of this in the future and make it possible for us to do all of the specs, ideally, even the one that you might want that you probably won't see on the channel yet, then consider checking our Patreon down in the description. Thank you for watching the video, and we will see you in the next one. Bye-bye!
I've been loving it then, I still love it now. Still, I play WoW. Still, I play WoW. Getting better every day, let me show you how. Cause still, I play WoW. Still, I play WoW. It's getting harder to stay, but at the end of the day, it's a guilty pleasure, so just log in and play. Whether it's classical retail, I'ma do a /bow. Still, I play WoW.